Pikes Peak is a magic place. It's the most dangerous event I've ever been involved in.
On this week's program, we're going to take a peek inside Banks Power. You might know Gale Banks as a guy who put stickers on the back of a tow vehicle. Well, there's so much more to know about him. From everything from this military motor sitting next to me to building 2,000 horsepower hot rods. We're going to take a peek at his history and the future of fuels, including even a Pikes Peak car. The show starts right now.
From our studio in Southern California, the hotbed of car culture, covering all things automotive. Welcome to In the Garage with Dennis. Here's your host, Dennis Pitzenbarger.
One of the sponsors of our program is Craftsman Tools. And whether I'm working on my own race car or helping others work on theirs, there's one thing I have to have, Craftsman Tools. Whether it's the wrenches, box, whatever you need, I know you can find it at craftsman.com or find them now at Ace Hardware stores. All right, I am in the engine building room at Gale Banks Engineering with the one and only Gale Banks. Truly, at this point, a living legend. And, you know, one of the cool things about knowing guys like you is every time I'm around you, I learn something new. I already know you know how to make power. I already know you know how to go fast. But there's all this backstory I didn't know about until today. You're literally the only guy I know that in 10th grade, you built your own electric vehicle.
Yes.
Complete with controls. Now tell me about that.
I wanted to stop mowing my dad's lawn.
Good,
Yeah.
I like that.
So I kind of hit Blackie's Surplus over on Alameda, bought a landing gear retracting motor and an aileron trim motor from World War II, and steered it with a trim motor and powered it with a retracting motor and used an old telephone dial and a remote transmitter.
Really?
I sat on the porch and dial left, dial right, dial forward, back, turn the lights on and off.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was cool.
And you know, other things is I knew you had an engineering degree. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize you were actually double majoring in college.
Yeah. Electrical engineering, back then we called it electronics, and mechanical engineering.
I gotta ask, looking at that part of it, you know, you were wrenching your way through college on top of double majoring. You know, at some point you built a motor and I believe you sold it, you said $1,100.
August of '58, that was my first major sale. I mean, I screwed with guys' cars, you know, but August of '58, I built this from leftover Studebaker Indy parts from the early '50s. I built a double overhead cam Studebaker V8 and put it in a 32 Plymouth Coupe.
Wow.
So, you know, it's kind of cool. It was $1,100. And that kind of financed me renting my first place right on the alley behind Speedomotive and Automotive Balancing Service.
Really?
Yeah, that's where it's all got started.
Did you ever think that it was ever gonna get to this level?
Well, you know, I was an early customer of the speed equipment industry. SEMA literally started in an insurance office. That's where they had the meetings, across the street from my speed shop in San Gabriel, on San Gabriel Boulevard, back in the late 60s. Or mid 60s actually. The bottom line was I never had any grand plan. I just knew I liked to make things go fast. I'm a hot rodder. I've been a hot rodder all my life. There is no 12-step program for me. I'm gonna go in the ground being a hot rodder.
You'll have the fastest casket in town.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for that.
You'll have it on like some sort of Hot Wheels track with like a 900 horsepower, you know, blown diesel.
In the middle of the night, no moon. Yeah. You'll hear this noise from the graveyard. That's Banks.
That's it. He's making some noise in there. And that's the next step for us in this conversation because, you've been so gracious to invite us into your shop and take a look around. I think it's time for us to now get out of the engine shop. I mean, some of the I don't even know, I can't even go into this, guys. We'll have a whole other hour of airtime. But the type of engineering you're doing here is amazing. But I want to talk about some of the hot rods that are in the shop.
Okay.
So let's take a walk around the corner and take a peek at some of the stuff you're building.
You got it.
All right, Gale, we could only touch on a few pages at the beginning of your history, but
Yes.
I want to take a couple more pages out of your book of history, starting in 1975 with working with the military and providing horsepower to our military and armed forces around the world.
Yes. We supply engines for the new Humvee upfit program, and we supply one of our Sidewinder turbo systems for the basic Humvee engine, our V6 diesel, as a next step up, and then our V8 diesel as the final step up. These are all being considered in that we have 250,000, roughly, Humvees, 163,000 with the Army alone.
Wow.
So they're like the B-52s of the wheeled vehicles.
Yeah.
They're going to extend their life and make them more blast-proof than they already are.
Sure.
So we do a lot of that, and we also do marine engines. So all the way up to about 800 horsepower. I'm proud to do that.
Well, also because, from my perspective, we need to have our first responders, the Marine Corps, whatever they might be, when they're going into trouble, they need to get out of trouble, and you're providing that horsepower for them. And that's something to be proud of.
It's getting to the fight quickly because they hear you coming. You don't want to come slowly. And once you're there, they know. So it's getting the hell out of Dodge when it's hopeless or getting too hot.
Yeah.
And one of the tests we do with the Humvees is we actually drag race them against a stalker.
Really?
50 meters, a little over 50 yards. That's the get the hell out of Dodge and around the corner distance, so to speak.
Yeah.
So we transform a Humvee. I mean, it becomes a different vehicle.
Well, and you know what? I'm happy you're doing that for our military because we all want to support our military.
Yes.
One of the other chapters or pages in this book is your current vehicle stuff that you're doing. There's a 350 behind us, and we kind of joked about that 4-liter in the Jeep being a little wheezy when they first came out with it. Why they didn't stick with the straight 6, I'm not getting into that on camera.
Yeah.
But you make it so it's got some power.
It's kind of cool, the Jeep aspect. I love Jeeps. We used to put a lot of small block Chevys in them back in the day, and there was a lot of surplus ones from World War II in Korea. Cheap, put the Chevy in and rocket ship. Really dangerous. The inline 6 is a really rugged engine that's way under performing. Yeah. We turbocharge that thing, it brings it to life, and also if you run at high altitude, man, the turbocharger is the money deal. We've been running Pike's Peak to develop our high altitude Humvee stuff on a race car, not on a Humvee. Yeah. Run the Pike's Peak hill climb the last 3 years. So, my deal has always been turbocharging. We've always been engine builders and more recently engine designers. And we supply vehicle manufacturers their engines. So we kind of got this advantage in the aftermarket because we have all this basic core engine building experience and then control experience, the electronics.
Sure.
Which is kind of the key to the future.
Well, before we talk about the future with fuels, I got to talk about this first-gen Camaro back here. The goal is a lofty one, and I've said it before. I usually volunteer my driving services or for test purposes, and I'm always there for you.
Yeah.
Tell me about this first-gen Camaro.
This is the finest pro touring setup I've ever seen. Engines down an inch and back 6 inches to get the weight distribution better. We moved the front springs, we made them into coilovers and brought the top of the springs up 8 inches.
Wow.
So this thing's on the ground. We puffed out the front fenders, 10-inch wide wheels that will go to full lock and all the way up and hit nothing.
Wow.
I wanted to make it a super turbo, and I'm doing this second fuel injection setup where we're running on the gasoline, but I'm laying methanol over the top of the gasoline with a separate set of injectors, what we call a straight shot setup. And I want to hit 2,000 horsepower on the street. a 427 LSX-based GM architecture. I want to do my own crank with bigger pins to make the crank more stable and tougher.
Okay.
I don't think lots of guys do this for a few seconds in a drag race. I want it to go 100,000 miles and be 2,000 horsepower.
If there was one guy I knew that could do it, I think you could do it, and I can't wait to see this thing finished. But you know what? I want to dive into that future of fuels things with you. I want to go over to the R&D department and take a look at that and kind of take your perspective on where the future of fuel is going. Now, we've joked, off camera talking about me running nitromethane and methanol, and you use methanol
Exactly.
injection.
Yes.
But there's a future of fuels that can not only help power, but also help emissions and also mileage. So
That's the magic. We have a full emissions lab here at Banks.
well, let's go take a peek at it and find out what you got to say.
Okay.
All right, everybody, Facebook. All right, sorry.
Ain't happening. These are serious individuals,
Okay.
except for Tony.
Except for Tony. Which one's Tony? That one?
No, right here.
Right here?
Yeah. The guy
He's
with
the one that was
with
on
the
Facebook. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Stop. All right, you ready? All right. One might call Gale Banks someone that could look into the future. He's referred to himself as a futurist. And Gale, when it comes to R&D and the future of fuels, this is something you hold near and dear to your heart. Tell me about what's going on in this room.
Well, it all started in 1973 with the Arab oil embargo. That crippled our country. So at that point, I went, well, what should be the future engine? What should be the future fuel? In terms of future engine, I really started paying attention to diesel because the combustion process is just inherently more efficient. And it's still true today. And our diesels today, with the microprocessor controlling them, are incredibly clean. They're good citizens today. And they're a kick in the butt to drive. So, but what about fuels? Well, diesel fuel is one of them, and there's a lot of different ways to make diesel fuel. Algae, lawn clippings, French fry oil. I mean, you start naming all these, if you will, biodiesel types of things. But I've been looking at, with diesels, a part of the emission system is this urea, this liquid that gets injected into the catalytic process underneath the truck. It's also in your Mercedes-Benz, your BMW diesel. Everything except a Volkswagen Jetta has this second tank. And I started thinking, what if I put a second tank on a vehicle that reduced emissions, improved fuel economy, and gave you a power boost when you needed it? What about that? What about two liquids, two fuels? This second fuel, like natural gas, is incredibly cheap. What if we run on diesel and natural gas? Or spark ignition gasoline and natural gas? What can we do with the two combined? In this room are the guys designing and perfecting the control systems for these alternate fuel or anti-detonate injection or water meth or whatever you want to call it. We're building a body of knowledge. That's kind of where we're going. I am a forced induction junkie. I love superchargers, turbochargers. I just can't get enough of it. I call it life after wide open throttle.
I like that.
What do you got after? Is that all I get? No. You can put a blower or you can do whatever. So we started running at Pikes Peak, and last year we decided to do something really insane at Pikes Peak.
I was going to say, that might lead us to our next little visit in
And
the
I
shop.
would like to take you out and show it to you.
Well, I am looking forward to it. Let's go
Let's
take a
do
peek.
it.
While we spend time here at Gale Banks Engineering, we want to make sure and thank one of our sponsors, Royal Purple. Royal Purple's HPS is recommended for vehicles no longer under warranty and for those seeking a higher level of performance and protection. It's fortified with high levels of ZDDP, anti-wear additives, and Royal Purple's proprietary additive technology called Centerlic. Independent tests have shown that HPS outperforms other leading synthetic and conventional oils for gasoline and diesel engines. Now back to more with Gale Banks.
Pikes Peak is the highest place with a road in the continental United States. Because I wanted to develop turbocharging for high altitude military, dominantly Afghanistan, where they get above 14,000 feet. Pikes Peak is a magic place. It's the most dangerous event I've ever been involved in. I met these guys with this Freightliner on the mountain last year, and this year I teamed up with them. I saw this diesel going up the mountain. It performed real well, but there was so much diesel smoke in the air. I thought, why would anyone inject that much fuel into an engine only to have it go through and no horsepower being produced? That diesel smoke in the air is horsepower you can see, but not use.
I can see the wheels turning in your head when you saw that. Like, you were probably watching that go up the mountain going, I know I can triple his horsepower, maybe even quadruple it.
Well, you want to keep it reliable. This thing is about 2,400 horsepower, and when we turn on our straight shot injection, our methanol and water, it's 2,800 horsepower. But the bottom line here was, a few years back, I had a problem with a military customer that needed more oomph coming out of the hole with their diesel boat. So I built a couple of engines just for the hell of it with a supercharger and 2 turbos. The supercharger gives you that low-end power that you're never going to get with big turbos. So it allows us to make the turbos even bigger because the blower gets you on top and you're moving, and then we valve out the blower and the turbos take over. So
was that the mechanical genius behind this?
Exactly. When I saw him leave the line and the smoke blotted out the sun, I kind of went, I think I'm at a tractor pull in the middle of Ohio. You know, it's like those guys love to make columns of smoke. It's like a rite of passage. It's your testosterone expression. But I look at it and I go, I want that power in the engine. I could pull farther with it.
Sure.
Or I could get this truck off the turns quicker. If I can get the air density into the engine, well, what does that take? So we got an 8.3 liter screw blower.
Huge.
We turn it 4.25 times engine speed. Engine turns 2,700. The blowers turn to like 11,000 something.
Wow.
That's massive air right off the turn or right at the start. In practice, on dry pavement, we were laying 225 feet of rubber with these super singles Michelins, which are yay wide and racing rubber.
Wow.
And I mean, it just patterns out. So no smoke. Coming off the turns, same thing. He was practicing this year under his record on the segments. They divide the mountain into thirds. You practice on 1/3 Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Saturday you rest, Sunday you race. The bottom line is the thing was quicker. We had it working. We were tuning the engine versus the water methanol, the straight shot. We get to Sunday, we draw an afternoon time, which is bad because you have a weather event on Pikes Peak like every afternoon. Last year, snow, sleet, hail, they cut the race in half so the rest of the guys could do something.
Yeah.
We had the race red flagged multiple times all afternoon. They're bringing down crashed cars, guys who know what they're doing, who'd gone off. Rainstorms in the pits, and finally we get a window, it dries out a little bit. The starting half of the course is dry. He patterns out and he's gone. And about 4 miles in, it's wet everywhere.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the story of this year's Pike Peak, is the weather just threw curves at everybody.
It did. His record, 12.42 miles, 156 turns, and a mile, you gain a mile. You start at 9,400, you finish at 14,110. There's a neat donut shop up there. It's worth the drive. So the bottom line here is, Mike Ryan, it's his truck, and he drives it, and he is one awesome, legendary Hollywood stuntman and stunt coordinator. In fact, you'll see his work in Fast and Furious 6. And he's working on preparing for 7. Mike is like, he sits in that thing in the most adverse racing conditions, and he's just making it happen. Now, it kicked the tail out on most of the turns. He couldn't get grip coming off the turns. He had to brake early coming into the turns because you don't brake well and you don't accelerate well. but we gave him enough increase in top speed that his 12-minute and 39-second record almost got broken.
In the weather?
Yes.
Wow.
He ran a 12:49.
That's amazing.
Well, he's amazing.
Well,
Yeah,
the
he
power
is.
helps.
Well, the power helps. He had a whole lot more on the straights.
Sure.
So it proved what I wanted to prove, but we're going back. We'll be at Pikes Peak next year, and anybody who's never been to Pikes Peak, it's the second oldest race in the country, and it's bucket list stuff. That's what it is.
I got to check that off myself. To tell
Yeah,
the
you
truth.
got it.
Hey, listen, I got to tell you, Gale, from the beginning of this time with you till now, it has always been a pleasure, and it's always a gift to share time with you and learn just, again, more and more stuff about what you've done in your fabulous career. And I love the fact that you call yourself a futurist. I love the fact that you call yourself a forced abduction junkie.
Yeah.
I'm
true.
right there with you.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's never enough power, and there's never enough time to have these interviews with you. So I got to tell you, I appreciate you coming by the show and spending some time with us. And I got to tell everybody out there, if you want to know more about what he's doing, bankspower.com is a place to go. Great videos, great products, great time with the man himself. I got to say thank you so much. And definitely, this is not the first time we're going to be out here playing with some horsepower. Is that a deal?
It's a deal. Thanks.
No problem. If you want to know more about what we're doing, make sure and check out what we're doing at our website, Facebook, and Twitter pages. And until the next video, we'll see you next time.